Hello there everyone, and welcome to a showcase video. As we know, the state of Rec Room, it's all becoming Rooms 2.0 only. And I know Rooms 2.0 can be a bit scary when looking at it. And I know a lot of people struggle with something called the hierarchy system. Now I've took it upon myself to teach people the hierarchy system with an invention. Most people struggle with how the management works, what all the symbols mean and everything, so I've compacted it all into one invention. Disclaimer, the reason why this invention is not a Rooms 2.0 invention is so people can spawn it in a Rooms 1.0 room and be able to spawn it and convert it to a Rooms 2.0 invention. I want them to be able to spawn it in both rooms. So if they want to show their friends in a room 2, because friends are going to be like, I don't like Rooms 2.0, I'm not going to use it. So you're going to spawn it in their 1.0 room to show them, and then they can spawn it in their 2.0 room as well. So it works. Anyway, let's get to this. So as you can see, it looks a bit complicated. At the top it says here, link. Too confusing. Here's a YouTube video explaining how to use this. It says that, and then it says a link. The link will be to this video. That's why it's not there. You will be able to find this on the invention store, by the way. It will be in the description. I'm showcasing this off. So, basically, when you make a container in Rooms 2 with your maker pen, when you make an object, it turns into something called a container. Now these is the symbol for a container. Over here is also the symbol for the container. You also have component and object. Components are like an audio player, emitter, or a trigger volume. Those are components. Object is cubes, spheres, tubes, anything along those lines. And then container is something new to Rooms 2.0. We'll get into that. So let's get to this. When you open your hierarchy, it will have the room name here. And this plain area here, this area that's completely flat, there's nothing here, is called your room level. Basically, Rooms 2 works in something called levels and layers. So you'll have your room level here. When you make a container or make an object and it makes a new container, it will have this symbol and have the name of the container here. When you select it on the hierarchy, it's like editing it. And it'll also have this symbol here, which allows you to rename the container. This symbol allows you to rename your containers to be organized. If you're selecting something and anyone else is in the room, the container or item will show up grayed out. This is because someone is editing it or the layer is locked, otherwise known as the freeze tool. It will be frozen. But in Rooms 2 it's known as the lock tool. So, getting on to the more complex stuff in the hierarchy. Using the cursor. Using the cursor that is on your screen or on VR, you can have a VR cursor as well, the pointer. If you hold on a layer and drag it into another layer, such as this container, so drag this container into this container, it adds it to a container. These are adding more layers to everything. I'm going to get into that. So, let's get into this. If you just make a basic shape, so I make a cube or I make a sphere in Rooms 2, they will just be on their own. This is known as a simple object. These are called simple objects. It's when they aren't in a container or anything. You can add them containers, but they won't be a container. Every object you make will be placed the furthest to the left, which as I stated is called the room level. It will be placed on the room level. Right, this is where we get a bit complex here. You can see these arrows. This is basically just highlighting the layers, basically. This is a layer, but this is a layer. But can you see how this is further out? This is because this layer is a part of this layer, and then these layers are part of this layer, but this layer is a part of this layer. This is what we called a compound object. Compound object is when multiple layers are inside of each other. So, when I've made say I'm making a bit of terrain. I've made a new container and I've called it terrain. This is my new container. This is called the main parent of the container. Then, inside it, I'm going to have background terrain, upland terrain, hill terrain. But I've made a new container called land and placed it inside this. This land container is now a child to this. So this is the main parent and this is the child of it. This is why it's called a compound, because it starts becoming complex and compound. We've got our main parent, our child of this. But in this container is all of my tube I've used on my terrain. In Rooms 2, something called advanced objects, which fall under tube and ribbon, are now named splines. And they'll have an S and a number next to it, maybe like spline S1.03. They'll have a number next to them when you make it. Simple shapes are boxes, cubes, spheres, and all that. Those are simple shapes. So these are all my tubes I've used for my terrain. Now, since it's under land, these are now... So a child is singular. Children is plural. So these are children to this parent. Land is a parent, but it's also a child to terrain. So if we're going to go through it again, our main parent, because it's the top one. This land is a child to terrain because it's inside this container. So this is why this is a child to terrain. But it's also a parent, but it isn't the main parent because this is the main parent. That's why we call this sub-parents. These are sub-parents, but they're also children and childs. These are children to the sub-parent, which makes these sub-children. This is what you need for Rooms 2.0, all this organization. And we have text here and everything that explains everything about what a spline is, what the parent containers are, how the terrain container has multiple containers in it called compound objects. It goes all over this. And it goes over all the icons, it goes over what this is called, and everything. So this is a showcase of how to use my hierarchy, my how-to hierarchy invention. If it does seem a bit confusing as well, obviously, you already know this. The link will be up here to this video I'm making right now of how this works. If it's still confusing, please let me know. If it's too confusing, you can message me on Rec Room. I can teach you it in person. My name will be here, and I can teach you it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye, everyone, and give it your Rec Room best. Thank you, Marisa.